Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. My sister grouped all the plus-sized guests at one wedding table and called it body positivity. My sister recently got married and I was one of her bridesmaids. She's always been very into image. Every birthday, every holiday, every event growing up, they all had to follow some kind of a theme. She's organized, meticulous, and she cares a lot about how things appear to others. Sometimes that's a good thing, but at her wedding, it left a strange taste in my mouth. The ceremony itself was lovely, intimate, well-planned, and everything where it needed to be. Everyone looked great, the food was good, and the music was solid. All seemed well until the reception. That's where I noticed something that didn't sit right. When I found my name card, I realized I wasn't seated with the other bridesmaids. Not a huge deal. I figured maybe it was a logistics thing or to make room for my date. But as I made my way to the table, I noticed something. Every woman already seated there was plus-sized. Some I knew, distant cousins, family friends, and a couple I didn't recognize. But all of us had one very obvious thing in common. We were the only table where that was the case. I sat down, trying to brush it off. I looked around the room. Other guests were clearly mixed. Friends, coworkers, people from different parts of my sister's life. Thin, average, athletic, all scattered randomly. But our table stood out. Not for how we looked, but because we had been grouped so intentionally. It was impossible not to notice. After a few minutes, one of my cousins leaned over and quietly asked if we were at the fat table. She said in a half-joking way, but it really hung in the air. No one laughed. We just kind of sat with it. None of us were in the same social circle. We didn't have shared interests. Some of us had never even met. The only common thread was size, and now we were sitting together like we were part of some silent club nobody signed up for. Still, I said nothing. It was her day. I didn't want to bring tension. I kept my smile on, and I tried to focus on the celebration. But it nagged at me, and a few days later, when I saw her for coffee, I finally brought it up. I told her that the seating arrangement had felt weird, that I couldn't help but notice everyone at our table was plus-sized, and it made me wonder why she put us all there. She didn't even hesitate. She told me she did it on purpose because she thought we'd all be more comfortable with each other, that it was a body-positive choice. Her words, not mine. She thought it would be empowering, supportive, uplifting. I just sat there, trying to find the right words. I told her that it didn't feel empowering. It felt isolating, like we were grouped together to be tucked away, like we were a different category of guest. She didn't take it well, said I was overthinking it, that I was twisting something good into something negative. Then she changed the subject and never brought it up again. I wish I could say I was the only one who noticed, but I wasn't. Two of the women from our table reached out after the wedding. One of them admitted it had felt off. She hadn't said anything because she didn't want to be that person at the wedding. The other just said that she was used to this kind of thing. And what really got me? Every other table had a group photo. One was posted to the wedding page, one made it into the family album, a couple even got printed. Ours didn't. We were the only table without one. Maybe it was an oversight, maybe not, but it felt symbolic, like we were there, but somehow didn't feel included. I haven't brought it up again. She's happy, and I don't want to dampen her memories. But I've thought about it a lot since then, about how easy it is to repackage exclusion as kindness, to call something empowering just because it looks thoughtful on the surface. But that's not what body positivity is. It's not about grouping people by body type like matching napkins. It's about treating people with dignity without turning them into a separate category. That day, I didn't feel uplifted. I felt sorted, and no one wants to be sorted at their own sister's wedding. You weren't included. You were grouped. That's not body positivity. That's packaging. What makes it worse is that she never even asked if that's what you'd want. She decided what would be comfortable for you without actually checking in, and then expected you to be grateful for it. It's like when teachers put all the difficult kids at the same table and act surprised when it backfires. You noticed because it was noticeable. And to be honest, it should have never happened that way. I can see where she thought she was being thoughtful, Maybe in her mind, it was about making people feel seen or supported. But if the people she was trying to empower walked away feeling singled out or excluded, then she clearly missed the mark. Grouping people by size is such a weird call. Not gonna lie, it sounds like something out of a sitcom, except it actually happened. I don't think your sister meant to be cruel, but this is just one of those cases where good intentions don't erase how something lands. She just feels really out of touch.
You know, I don't think she meant to hurt anyone, but when you group people by appearance, even with good intentions, it almost always ends up weird.
Yeah, that's one of those things where your heart could be in the right place, but the execution walks straight into awkward territory.
I mean, comfort is great, but you can't assume what makes someone feel comfortable, especially not at a wedding.
Exactly. If no one asked for that kind of seating, it probably shouldn't have been done.
She didn't have to turn the guest list into a visual layout plan.
At the end of the day, body positivity isn't about where you sit, it's about making sure nobody feels set apart in the first place. Am I the jerk for not skipping a work trip because my husband is recovering from a hair transplant? I work full-time in a high-pressure corporate job, and I'm also a mom to 2 young kids, both under 7. My husband works too. He makes a solid income, though I'm the primary earner. He's usually good with the kids, especially when I travel for work. I go on work trips about 6 to 8 times a year, and he's always stepped up for school drop-offs and pickups. We live in New York City, so like most people here, we walk everywhere. School, errands, everything. We don't have to rely on driving or long commutes for kid logistics, which honestly makes things more manageable. A few months ago, I found out I'd be attending a 2-day planning retreat for work. It's not just another trip. It's been in the calendar for 6 months and is one of those important FaceTime events where people actually notice if you're not there. I was looking forward to it, not just for the exposure, but also for a brief mental reset. Now, here's where it gets complicated. My husband decided to fly overseas for a hair transplant. That's fine. If it helps him feel better about himself, I fully support it. But he never plans anything in advance. He didn't coordinate the dates with me or even mention it until fairly recently. It turns out his return date falls just a few days before my work trip. Specifically, by the time I leave, he'll be 3 days post-op. And last night, out of nowhere, he texts me that I need to cancel my trip. He says he's recovering from surgery and that I should put him first. He told me he'd be beyond mad if I left anyway, that he wouldn't take the kids to school if I went, and that I needed to prove he matters by being there this one time. The thing is, he chose these dates. He knew I had this trip. I didn't spring anything on him. And from what I understand, while his head is sore and bald right now, there's nothing about the surgery that makes him physically incapable of walking the kids a few blocks to school. What's really behind all this, I think, is that he doesn't want to be seen in public while looking like he just had work done. He's self-conscious. I get that. But this isn't a medical emergency. It's not major surgery, and this wasn't a surprise. He's calling my trip stupid and says I'm being selfish for going. Meanwhile, I've been the one picking up the slack, adjusting to his last-minute changes, and constantly being the one who compromises. He tends to make impulsive decisions about work, about travel, about money, and I'm the one who has to reconfigure our lives around it. This is just another instance of that, and I guess I finally hit my limit. It's not like I didn't care. I checked in with him. I offered to make things easier on him. But canceling something this important to me because he feels insecure about his scalp isn't something that I can justify, especially when he made the choice without considering the timing. So I packed my bags, kissed my kids, and left for my trip. I'm not sure how he's feeling about it now. I haven't heard much from him since I left. But I do know this. I bent over backwards more times than I can count, and for once, I drew a line. It's vanity surgery he chose, not something medically necessary. He should be putting on his big boy pants and taking care of the kids. He's not refusing because he's in pain. He's refusing because he doesn't want people seeing him post-op. He clearly doesn't realize hair transplants don't look natural for months. You don't just walk out the door looking like a full Samson after a week. If he's really that self-conscious, maybe ask a friend to handle drop-offs, or just keep the kids home a day or two. Or better yet, fly in his mom. She might be the one with the patience to deal with him right now. Either way, No need for you to cancel your trip over this. Hey Karen, imagine skipping a career retreat because your husband's embarrassed to be seen with a fresh hair transplant.
Embarrassed? Please. If he's bold enough to fly overseas for vanity surgery, he can be bold enough to drop off the kids looking like a patchy chia pet.
He said he'd be beyond mad if she didn't put him first.
Oh, poor baby. Maybe next time she should pack him a bottle, a bonnet, and a note that says, "Mommy's at work. Handle it."
Girl demands to use my hotel room and calls me selfish when I say no. So I, 30 male, recently went on a short work trip and I stayed at a mid-range hotel. Nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. When I arrived, there was just one person ahead of me at the check-in desk, as I arrived way before the check-in time. The person ahead of me was a girl who seemed irritated. She was complaining that her room wasn't ready yet. From what I overheard, it had something to do with the room type or cleaning schedule. Honestly, I didn't care. When it was my turn, the front desk handed me my key without issues as my room was ready early. So I thanked them and started heading toward the elevator. That's when she suddenly turned to me and said,
"Wait, your room's ready? Seriously? I've been waiting here, and you just walk in and get one?"
I said, yeah, I guess mine was already prepped. She goes,
"Can I use your room for like half an hour? Just to freshen up and lie down or something? I've been waiting and I'm exhausted."
I was caught off guard, but I quickly said, "No, sorry, I'm really not comfortable with that." She got annoyed fast.
"What's the big deal? We're both staying here. It's not like I'm some random person."
I replied, "Still, I don't know you. I'm not letting someone I just met into my hotel room. You'll have to wait like everyone else." She rolled her eyes, said something under her breath, and went back. Later that evening, I saw her at the hotel restaurant with another girl, and she gave me a dirty look like I had personally ruined her day. Also, shouldn't she be more cautious of strangers? She didn't even know me. I could have been anyone. What if I was a creep, or worse? Some people have zero awareness when entitlement takes over. Edit. English isn't my first language. I'm seeing some people are laughing about her saying, she's not a random person. That's not exactly how she phrased it. It's just the closest way I could translate what she said in my language. It's not actually that funny in my language. Her point was basically that since she was a guest too, I should have trusted her. I had to deal with someone like that, trying to get into my apartment complex. I told her, I can't let you in. I'm not walking all the way back to my apartment and then back again just to open the gate. She said, my ex is crazy. I told her, yeah, I had one of those too. That's exactly why I can't let you in. She spent all that time begging me when she could have just followed a resident in through the gate in their car. These people really aren't thinking things through. Your story was perfectly written, by the way. I honestly would have never guessed that English isn't your first language.
You know, if I wanted to take a nap in a stranger's room, I'd at least bring some snacks.
She really said, we're both guests, like that's a personality trait.
Bold of her to assume she's the main character and someone else's reservation.
I was a Starbucks barista. Here's how I secretly got revenge on rude customers. I was a barista for 6.5 years. Started when I was 20, burned out by 26. I worked at a location inside a city mall. Not quite the heart of downtown, but close enough to catch the spillover. Office folks in the mornings, teens in the afternoons, and the tired, rude, or entitled all day long. For the most part, I played it straight. Made the drinks right, kept the line moving, smiled when I needed to. But every once in a while, I'd hit my limit. Not with people who were in a rush or confused. Those I could deal with. It was the ones who acted like you weren't human. The ones who looked straight through you while placing an order on speakerphone. The ones who would sigh dramatically when you asked them to repeat something or correct them gently. That's when the petty revenge kicked in. Nothing dangerous. Nothing that would cause real harm. Just enough to be annoying. Call it a quiet protest against the kind of customer service that turns you into wallpaper. One of the most common tricks? Decaf. If you come in swinging, barking orders, snapping at me or my coworkers, especially the new kids, I'd make your drink just the way you asked. Only you'd be walking away with no caffeine to fuel that bad attitude. There was one customer I'll never forget. Her name wasn't Karen, but she earned the title. She used to come in around 8:20 every morning, black heels, stiff blazer, always talking loudly on the phone. She never made eye contact, just walked up, still on the phone, muttered,
Grande, non-fat, extra hot vanilla latte, 200 degrees, and don't burn it like last time.
That was her thing, 200 degrees, which is above what we're allowed to steam milk to. There's a reason for that. Anything above 170 or so risks scalding or blowing the wand. We were told to decline politely, so I did. I told her it was a safety issue and I couldn't steam milk to that temperature. She looked at me like I was dirt and said, loudly enough for the line to hear,
Then hire someone who can.
That was it for me. So yeah, she got decaf. For the next 2 weeks, she came in every day, made her usual demand, grabbed her drink, and walked off without ever tasting it in front of me. No complaints, no idea. And you know what? She stayed just as miserable. Turns out it wasn't the caffeine that gave her that edge. It was her personality. I never tampered with anything beyond decaf. Nothing dirty, nothing unsafe. I drew the line there. But I had coworkers who had fewer reservations. One guy, who only lasted 6 months, used to have a toilet tea routine. There was this regular who was absolutely vile to the staff, especially the women. Talked down to them, made creepy comments, constantly sent drinks back. My coworker waited until he knew he'd be walking in, dipped his tea bag somewhere it didn't belong, and served it up with a smile. I didn't condone it, but I understood the impulse. Another coworker worked the night shift at a burrito place. He'd give rude, drunk customers one napkin, the wrong straw, and just enough hot sauce to ruin the meal without technically doing anything wrong. The thing is, when you work customer service long enough, you realize people feel weirdly free to act terrible the moment there's a counter between you, and you're expected to just smile and take it, for hours, for minimum wage. So when someone crosses the line, like throwing their card at you, demanding you remake a drink for free because they just don't like it, or mocking your accent, it starts to add up. Petty revenge becomes a coping mechanism. It's the one way you remind yourself that you still exist, that you're not invisible. Now, years later, I work a quiet desk job. I haven't touched an espresso machine in a long time, and I don't take joy in what I used to do, but I don't exactly regret it either. There's something powerful in being kind to the people who can't fight back. And really, if you treat your barista like a human being, your coffee's a lot more likely to come out right. Every time. Not gonna lie, decaf for rude customers is the ultimate harmless revenge. You're not hurting anyone. You're just denying them the fuel for their bad vibes. Fair trade. I mean, I get it, but caffeine withdrawal can hurt. If someone genuinely needs it, it's rough to mess with that. Not saying customers should be rude, but be careful with that line. Your ex-coworker with the toilet tea? That's disgusting. That's not petty revenge. That's a health violation.
Imagine yelling, hire someone who can, over a latte.
She wanted milk steamed hotter than the sun and got decaf instead. That's a quiet kind of justice.
Honestly, if your drink order is a paragraph long, maybe try kindness as your first modifier.
And if you can't do that, well, enjoy your very calm morning. That's all for now, but don't be blue. We'll be back soon with more stories for you. Remember to listen to Mr. Redder every night, so your dreams will be wonderful like you are and bright. Now click this playlist, come follow along. We'll be right here. Until then, so long.